Right guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a big one for you. I have been given permission to use a field in a nearby village to come and make videos for you, so I can do stuff with bigger items, can get the Jeep out, properly show you around things without being stuck in a rubbish driveway where everything looks useless. So we're going to test that out today, and what we're going to do is I'm going to make a few videos all at the same time whilst I'm out here, but the one we're going to look at today is getting the gimbal out and everything and giving you a proper walk around of my Jeep. It's now ready for the display season as long as there's no unexpected breakdowns happen. So I'm going to get the camera down now and we're going to go over the Jeep, give you a general overview of it and share with you some of my thoughts on it really. So let's get on with it. Right guys, you have to bear with me a little bit because I'm still very much getting used to this gimbal and how it works, so things might not be perfect. Also, if you hear any background noise, we're in the countryside, so there's going to be tractors and stuff like that, I'm afraid. That's just the way it is in the country. So let's start with the side here and I'll just do a walk around so you can have a proper look at it. It's extremely bright today, so the camera's struggling a little bit. I hadn't bought a filter yet. Right guys, so let's go over a few things about my Jeep. So this Jeep here is a 1943 October, so that's a late 43 model really. That has had a pretty hard life. It came back to the UK from America in about 1993. I don't have definites about where it was, what unit it was with or anything like that. I've been told that it was in Germany until 1953. But I can't verify that. And then it went to America supposedly, where that was probably on a farm or something like that. And an old boy bought it in the early 90s and he shipped it back to the UK. I've got a sheet of paper that he had where he'd written down some of the changes he'd made and what that was like when he got it. And that had a diesel engine, the wrong gearbox. Lots of things were missing, like it didn't have the mirrors and that were all gone. That had no fuel tank, no seats, so that must have been a bit of a wreck. Unfortunately I don't have any photos of it like that. That would have been interesting to see them. And he unfortunately died a couple of years after he did it, and his wife sold it at an event in Kent in the UK called the Victory Show to an old boy that lived in Norwich in Norfolk. He had it for 15 years, didn't treat it overly well. Then I got it off him and that was running, but that had some pretty big issues really. That was a bit of a mess. I'll load up some photos here of what that was like when I got it, so they'll should be popping up on the screen for you any moment now. And basically me and my dad and some mates, we gave it not a nut and bolt restoration, but a substantial overhaul. So all of the body has been off and been sandblasted and resprayed and like everything like that, but we didn't take the engine off or anything. I painted all of the chassis and everything by hand whilst the body was off, and that's just had an absolute ton of work, but that's not a full nut and bolt restoration. So I'm going to show you now a few of the things that have been done to it. Right, so let's start with what was the big main problem when I got it. And that was that this hub here, you see here, this is the cap of a half shaft. So that goes into the rear differential and that's what drives the Jeep. Now, when I got it, I didn't realise in my ignorance that was in four-wheel drive. And that was in four-wheel drive because that shaft was broken. There was a bit of it stuck in the rear diff, and that meant that you could not drive it in two-wheel drive because of the way differentials work. They turn the wheel with least resistance, so it was just spinning a bit of metal that was stuck inside the differential. So it was only driving on the front axle. And the old boy didn't bother to tell me that. He decided to be dishonest. That's what it is. So that was the big issue. So the rear diff had to come out and have some bearings and seals and that put in, and that shaft had to be replaced. And then that was good to get on the road again, like mechanically wise, for the most part. So I thought that would be the main thing I covered. So if you ever look at buying one of these vehicles or any other vehicle at all, before you take it home, get them to show you it in 2-wheel drive and get them to show you it in 4-wheel drive. Make sure both the prop shafts are spinning and that the wheels will all drive. Otherwise you might end up like me in a bit of a mess. Let's go over a couple of the other non-factory things that have been done. You see my Jeep has got a mirror on the right hand side. Now when I got the Jeep it had 2 different mirrors. The one on one side was from a CJ2A post-war civilian Jeep, the other one was from an M38 post-war military Jeep. They both have different fittings, so they came off, and I fitted a new mirror here, and the reason I did it is because on the other side here it's actually got 2 sets of original holes where these original triple screw brackets were fit, and one of them is much lower than the other, and this is actually mounted lower than where the mirror would be on the driver's side, and that's because I put it into a set of holes where that had obviously been put at some point in its service that had a mirror fit there, and I have seen photos of them with additional mirrors fitted and they are sometimes lower than the other side. They've obviously just randomly bolted them on wherever they didn't particularly care. So I have this weird little mirror on the side that actually sits too low and is pretty much useless, but that was done because that's part of this Jeep's history. The holes were already there, so I thought that would be an interesting thing to do. And there is some photos of it. I'll see if I can find some and pop you up a picture of it. That's just another little item that's a bit strange on my Jeep. Then we'll come to this wing or fender, depending on where you are and what you call it. Now this has got a wool blanket fitted to it, and that might seem a bit odd. Why would I have a blanket there? That's not a factory fitting, and that's true. But when I got this, the previous owner had fitted a stupid chrome fire extinguisher out of a sports car on a bracket to this wing. He'd drilled holes in it and everything, and that's obviously totally wrong. So I took that all off, but the holes were still there, and I thought, what am I going to do with this? Because I haven't really got the kit to properly plug holes like that. And then I found some technical manuals from Fort Knox, I think dated 1942, and in them that's all the different storage positions for items on Jeeps, regardless of different types of roles they had for machine guns and officers and radios and all that sort of thing. And there's tons of diagrams in that with wool blankets fitted to this wing. You have them fitted there and also have them fitted on the top here, sometimes one or the other, sometimes both. And there are some photos of them about as well. So I thought that's perfect. I can pop a couple of footman loops on there and get a wool blanket on there. People again might say, well, I wouldn't have had that, and then you can pull out the picture and show them that's something that was done. So that's another little oddity of my vehicle. So now that the really bizarre features are out of the way, well, not really bizarre, just not factory standard, let's cover a couple of the things that I've done deliberately because I've seen them on field modifications, and they include kit and pieces of equipment. Now the main little modification I've made is the fitting of additional footman loops on the back here. See them all bolted in? They wouldn't come out of the factory like that. So I stow a lot of equipment in my Jeep, if I can get out of the sun, and you have to be secure. I will not do things that risk accidents or bits of equipment flying off when I'm driving about. So normally people just strap things to the top bow, and that's okay, that's fine, all well and good. But if you need to put your roof up for any reason, and I never do put my roof up, but for some reason I wanted to or needed to, you then lose the bit that you want to strap all your equipment on. And I have crates, tins, guns, all sorts strapped into the back of this. They can't be loose banging around, everything will get wrecked. You could risk something flying out of the Jeep and causing an accident. You just can't do that. And so what I found was some photos, a couple of photos, I think out of one of the armoured divisions, where their Jeeps had been fitted with these additional footman loops so that they could tie things down, sort of as you see there. So I thought perfect. So I drilled enough holes to have 5 on each side. If I put it on the other side there, you see that's symmetrical. And that's perfect, because now you can drive with the roof up and you can still pop stuff safely stowed, or you can have it with the top bow up and out the back hanging with the roof on it folded if you want. There's some photos of that. It just lets you do whatever you want, and it's safe and secure. So that everyone wins that way. Another little non-factory feature that mine has is a bustle rack. I'm going to do its own little video on this bustle rack, sort of a review jobby. Now again, these would have never have been factory standard, but there is absolutely tons of photos of Jeeps with bustle racks, especially in the armoured divisions. And initially I had it out of necessity, because Jeeps don't actually have much space to store kit. I didn't have a trailer when I first got it, so I figured I'm going to have a bustle rack. And I got this, and it came with a big canvas bag that you could put lots of stuff in. The canvas bag wasn't period, so I don't use that anymore, because now the Jeep's set up more as a display. So I tend to drive it about as I want it to look on display. So anything like a bag that isn't correct, I don't want in it at all when I'm driving to events, basically. So that's another little addition I've got on. And lastly, for the strange non-factory bolt-ons, is my pedestal. So mine's a gun Jeep. It didn't come with a pedestal. I got the pedestal off a friend that was didn't have a Jeep anymore, but he took his pedestal out before he sold it. Now, I know lots of people kick off, they say gun Jeeps are overrepresentation, there's too many of them, they wouldn't have been that many, blah 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 blah. Well, what other people do has never been a factor in anything I do. I've got a simple outlook, is it doesn't matter if I'm in the UK, I don't care if in America you go to a big event and 30 Jeeps might have machine guns on them out of 50. I don't care, that's got nothing to do with my displays. I tend to do a lot of small events, and at them events this is either the only Jeep or there's only 2 or 3. In the group I'm in, there's 2 other Jeeps. One of them's a British Airborne Jeep, which is absolutely nothing like mine at all. The other one is an American Jeep, but that's not a gun Jeep, and it doesn't have all of the additional stuff on it that mine does. That's much more stock looking Jeep. So mine's the only gun truck there. So it really doesn't bother me about people saying that they're overrepresentations, or overrepresented, sorry, having a bit of a stammer. That doesn't affect me at all, so please guys don't give me the, oh, it's got a machine gun, blah blah blah. I don't care, because they existed. And my Jeep's primarily set up to be like a 2nd Armoured Division heavy weapons sections Jeep, and I've got a big list of all of the gear that a heavy weapon sections Jeep had. And one of the bits of gear is an M31C pedestal, which is what this is, with a 50 caliber machine gun in it. Now normally I have a 30 cal in this, but I do have a 50 cal as well. So I've got this set up to be that sort of Jeep, and I'm trying to collect all of the pieces of equipment out of that list. So at a display I can have my Jeep and trailer with all of the lists of equipment that I've got down for that heavy weapon platoon, just because I thought that would be really cool, although some of the equipment is hard to come by. I'm getting there slowly. So let's have a closer look at this pedestal. Right, so the M31C is the later version of the Jeep pedestal, the first one being the M31. Now, a lot of people say they never existed in the Second World War. I've found look, what I'm saying is, they probably weren't about until the late war. I'll accept that. But they're in a lot of books and manuals listed as World War II items. I've read accounts of a guy after the war who found a warehouse full of new old stock M31Cs. So they must have been about. And they all came with a certain pedestal, a certain cradle, sorry. So they were a thing, though except they probably were very late war only. You probably would have seen, I've seen no photos of one in Normandy, for example. So that's fair enough. But there's a couple of big reasons why I've got a 31C over a 31. Now the firstly is I had access to one. This isn't a reproduction, that's an original gun pedestal. Let's show you the original data tag. There you are. See, this was probably never issued, that's got those stampings on it. But that is an original data tag. You've also got your nice brass fittings and everything on this. The reproduction ones, when you find them, even the best reproduction ones, normally are all steel, they don't have any brass fittings. So the main reason I got it was because it was available over an M31, and it's an original. But there is another big difference, and that's the main difference between the 31s and the 31Cs and the 31s, and that's the legs. The older pedestal did not have these support legs. So this has got 3 legs, one goes into the middle down there, and then you've got one that goes each side of the Jeep. Sorry about my shadow. I think I need to do this in a duller day again at some point. Now, you might not think it, but if you've got this big pedestal here and you've got a 50 caliber machine gun in the top of it, when you're driving around, that is putting a massive amount of pressure on that plate down there. Now, under the body in a Jeep, there's a plate on the chassis on the central bar, specifically to reinforce where the pedestals go in. But even with that, you're putting a lot of stress on the body. So these legs really spread that out. You don't get the bar trying to roll around and break your tub. So it's much better for the vehicle. And like I say, that's what I had access to, and it looks really nice. I've given it an overhaul. That's getting pretty scuffed up in that now because the paint's not great, but that just makes it fit in a bit better, I think. So, my machine gun mount, M31C pedestal. So guys, that was just a quick overview of my Jeep, a little bit of the history of it, just showing you some of the bits of equipment I keep in mine. I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm going to end it there. Just have a walk around, get you some nice footage. Well, hopefully nice footage anyway. The camera is struggling with its brightness. And then what I'm going to do is some separate videos going over the different pieces of equipment in more detail and showing you how some of it works. So there you go guys, a quick unscripted overview of my little Jeep and some of the bits and pieces that have been done to it. So I hope you enjoyed that, and there'll be more Jeep footage to come.